One.
Hello and welcome to the Gridiron Glory. We're here to bring you another great episode of the Gridiron Glory. Will and Tad here, where we cover all 32 NFL teams. We're very proud that we're an exclusive a channel that brings you the background, content, stories, and highlights of all 32 teams. We're not like the mainstream channels where we only cover the popular teams and exaggerate and overly talk about pretty much just the popular teams and not really meant. No, we talk about all 32 teams equally, share their experiences. So here we are today to bring you the Washington Commanders at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And yeah, so with that being said, yeah, this was a team that, this was the Washington football team that, you go out and you draft what is going to be your future quarterback for the future, Jayden Daniels. And then you're going you're going on the road against the team who I honestly do truly believe is going to win the NFC South. I stand firmly on that, will continue to stand firmly on that. Tad really wants to heavily favor his former Vikings quarterback, Kirk Cousins, in Atlanta. I mean, he wants to show a little bit of love for Kirk and thinking that Kirk has what it takes to win the NFC South. But I'm a realist, and I believe that Tampa Bay is the best team in that division. So, and then that's not to say that Tad doesn't make a case that Atlanta could win that division. But my personal take is I just think that Tampa Bay is the best team in the NFC South, bar none. I mean, you look at the pieces, you look at what they have around them. You got veteran defensive leadership, you got veteran offensive leadership. I mean, Tampa Bay is probably the most well-rounded and most well-built team in the NFC South if you really evaluate things. But nonetheless, the football game itself, 37-20, and really this was just a game about breaking the rust off of Jayden Daniels, getting Jayden Daniels' feet in the water. And I mean, he really impressed me with a lot of different situations. Though Dan Quinn did mention that it wasn't intentional for Jayden Daniels to run as much as he did in this football game. And, but I do still nonetheless think it was awesome how, yeah, there were some times where Jayden Daniels, and this is a part of his development, right? He went out there, he tried to evaluate the field. And this is just learning rookie moments. I feel like instead of him trying to force the throw, kind of like what you saw with Bo Nix a couple of times, trying to force the throw, Jayden Daniels just like, hey, well, you know what? I'm just going to take off and, and hope for the best. And 16 times it worked out for him, so, and as far as his mobility goes, his mobility is definitely going to play a big factor into the NFL and his development and everything. And again, this is a game-by-game scenario, and it's kind of the same exact thing that I said with Bo Nix. Just because, Jayden Daniels won the Heisman in college and was insane at LSU, that does not mean he's going to pan out in the NFL. But I will say, I am more impressed with Jayden Daniels through one NFL football game than I am with Bryce Young through as many as he started. That's just my personal take. What I saw from Jayden Daniels is a guy that was really determined, that was resilient, that was like, hey, even though I have this kind of a football team around me that's not very well put together, that doesn't have the best pieces around him. I mean, yeah, granted, you have a coach in Dan Quinn versus a coach like Dave Canales in Carolina, but still, nonetheless, Jayden Daniels is like, I'm not, going to use, any of those things as an excuse. I mean, Washington is in a way better state than Carolina, yes. But still, nonetheless, Jayden Daniels went out there and did the best that he could to compete, and it didn't really look flashy until the fourth quarter when Tampa Bay, by this point, this game was won. This game was pretty much over in the fourth quarter. I mean, Tampa Bay, like, they had this game on lock. So really when I'm talking about this game between the Washington Commanders and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm really just focusing more on the development of Jayden Daniels and kind of just what we saw in his first NFL game. As far as Tampa Bay, I mean, yeah, let's look at Tampa Bay. 24 of 30 for Baker Mayfield, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, beautiful showing. Bucky Irving, 62 yards. Rashad White, Baker Mayfield himself even took off a couple of times. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Trey Palmer even. I mentioned that this is a very well-rounded team. You brought in Jordan Whitehead in the offseason on defense. Uh, Also, probably worth mentioning would probably be Sir Servocia Dennis, who had a sack and a tackle for loss. Their second year player out of Pittsburgh, so Pittsburgh University. So he is starting to transcend into a very solid defensive player. And like I said, this is a very what this game was a very well-rounded Tampa Bay team who is coming off of a second-round playoff exit, who has that playoff experience now. Baker Mayfield. It's safe to say that Baker Mayfield is starting to settle in here, starting to ride the helm here. Baker Mayfield is certainly starting to transcend into one of the more ever developing NFL quarterbacks. And then for Washington, it's just like this year, I mean, you're just focused on developing Jayden Daniels, and I liked what I saw from him in his first showing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of positives to take away from Jayden Daniels. And I mean, he'll develop as a passer. He's not there as a passer yet. I mean, that's just the truth of the situation. 17 of 24, 184. He didn't have any interceptions. So that's a plus. One thing Jayden Daniels, in my opinion, can work on that did kind of worry me a bit. He did fumble the ball 3 times. They recovered all the fumbles, so he didn't lose any fumbles. But I mean, down the road, if he keeps being that lax with the ball security, that could definitely come back to bite him. I mean, so definitely something to work on there.
And there was a lot of rookie learning moments for Jayden Daniels.
For sure.
And I mean, you're going to have rookie learning moments, and I just feel like that's kind of what we saw too. I mean, of the rookie showings, though, I will say of NFL debuts, I was more impressed by Jayden Daniels' NFL debut, probably a little bit more so than Bo Nix. That's an
I'd say, I mean, he looked like out of the quarterbacks that played, we had what, him, Nix, Caleb Williams. Am I missing anybody else?
I can't think of any other quarterback that had their NFL debut. I think those are really the only 3.
Out of those 3, I mean, Jayden Daniels certainly looked the best. I mean, that's just out of the 3. I mean, he ran the ball well. He wasn't great passing the ball, but I mean, I think he ended up with the most passing yards out of the 3 anyways. But overall, I mean, a lot of experience there to learn on. And it was also an interesting debut in Washington for Austin Eckler, the running back who had been playing for the Chargers. He didn't run the ball a lot, only 2 rushes for 10 yards, but he also had 4 receptions for 52 yards. He is a running back that can catch the ball, so that's impressive there. And turning around and looking at Tampa Bay, they had some impressive debuts as well. Bucky Irving, their draft pick out of Oregon, in his debut, 9 carries for 62 yards. And then the rookie wide receiver, Jalen McMillan, who was also their 3rd-round draft pick out of Washington, had his first career catch, only 1 catch, but it was a 32-yard touchdown. So a fairly solid debut for the Tampa Bay rookies as well. So a lot of excitement there in Tampa Bay. And like you said, they look like the most well-rounded team in the division early on. I do still believe in Atlanta turning around from week 1. I did pick them to win the division preseason. And
I just want to say that that's a respectable. It's respectable to think that Atlanta could win the NFC South.
Sure.
And I'm not necessarily saying that like anybody who thinks that Tampa Bay doesn't. I mean, the NFC South isn't like a for sure division, but
right. And I mean, it's gonna be close. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay won the division. I mean, they're talented. Baker Mayfield's looked good. But I think that what we saw out of Atlanta, and I'm not going to veer too much into that game when we're covering this game, but I think we'll see better from Atlanta later in the season. But for Tampa Bay, they looked really good. They're a team that, if they play like this the entire season against improved competition than Washington, then they'll certainly be a big threat to win the division. They had the more impressive week 1 performance, certainly.
Absolutely. Commanders, Buccaneers roll. Commanders keep developing Jayden Daniels. 37-20. Next week, Tampa Bay plays at Detroit, the playoff rematch. And I can't wait to preview that one, to be honest with you. And then Washington plays the Giants. So a real chance for Jayden Daniels to get his first NFL win next week at home, in my opinion, against against their divisional rivals, the Giants. So,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry. Did you have another take on that?
yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, it would certainly be an opportunity for Jayden Daniels to show off more as a passer.
Absolutely, against the very, very weak New York secondary.
Yeah.
So, for lack of a, I mean, I don't mean to be so harsh.
It's the truth of the situation.
Right. So yeah, 37-20. Tampa Bay wins this one. Yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, follow, comment down below. Let us know what you think about Commanders and Buccaneers. And keep watching the Gridiron Glory, where we cover all 32 teams.